When my father died, the therapist told me it's okay to go crazy as long as you come back.
Yeah.
And I had that with me the whole time. Like I said, it took me about 18 months, me personally, to 18 months to really process it out and not be done with it. I'm not telling you that I'm finished with it. What I'm saying is it took me that long to get back to, I can function normally again. But that's just my experience. There's not a timeline. So there were people in my life that set an expectation that 6 months later, I should be fine. Don't be afraid and give yourself grace enough to process how you need to process. Just don't lose sight of the fact that if you choose to go crazy, that you do need to come back.
I want money, I want freedom, I want love, I want to have the best, exciting, amazing life ever. God's like, hey, well, in order to really appreciate that, I'm going to have to put you through hell. Because if you can't deal with the hell, you won't be able to deal with all the success and the fame and the money, because you become so out of sync with society that you become an egotistic twat. You start becoming a god. So it was like, I'm going to give you something, take it away. Give you something, take it away. Give you something, take it away.
I just want peace. I don't want to experience stress anymore. I want money not because I want to be a loud asshole and drive Lamborghinis and fly in jets and go all over. Look at me, I'm so great, look how rich I am. I don't want to be that guy. Yes, I'm chasing millions and I know I'm going to achieve it because I know how. But my intention now is I just want to fuck off to Bali and live there the rest of my life.
So last night I was in bed and I was going back to all of my podcasting episodes on YouTube. So I used to record everything with video and I used to upload them on YouTube. Some of them got like 3, 4, 5 views. And I'm looking back at all of the different guests that I had. And with the first, say, 30 episodes, it literally was a different guest for each person. And I was sometimes doing 3 podcasts a day, all lasting an hour to an hour and a half. And I was just whacking them out, conversations with people all around the world, trying to find another person to have a conversation with. And I was like a madman. And what I realized is that there's so many people who I don't speak to anymore, and some people that I do. And I had this realization of there's people in your life that will be there because essentially you are the same energy. And as they grow and you grow, you will kind of be aligned along the same way. And then there's some people where you were in their lives for a short moment of time, you served a specific purpose, and then everyone goes on their way, and that's okay. And the point is that we should embrace people at present because we don't know when they're going to disappear. We don't know how long they're going to be in your life for. We can't predict when they're going to come back, if they're going to come back. And like anything, all you have is now. So embrace people that come into your life now. Don't worry about if they're going to be in here tomorrow. Just spend time with them and take what you need from them as a human being.
Or serve however you can, right? I mean,
that's yes.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it as well, you know. And that's not to say like that should be your goal all the time or that should be what's on your mind, but you know, sometimes your purpose is just to serve as a beacon, right? Whether that's light or warning, right? Or example to somebody else, whatever they may be going through. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like the people, you know, you mentioned that, and it immediately makes me think about us. Like I would have no idea who you are if it weren't for Nico. Interestingly enough, I've been catching some snippets you've been putting up with chat between you and Nico recently on Instagram, which have been really great, by the way. I really enjoyed them. So as a viewer and a guest, I appreciate what you're putting out. But yeah, like, I mean, I guess Nico specifically is another one where like we had a time where I went. So for anybody who hasn't seen or heard or know anything about me, I'm from the US and currently still in the US. That's not my goal. And Oliver here is over in the UK. And so I spent 2020, the majority of 2020, I spent in England, 8 solid months. And it was through that time that I got to meet Nico, and then I got to meet you. And like you say, you know, there's just this weird sort of energy where obviously we're in different countries, so we're not, hey, what's going on? You want to hang out, you know? But there's something that definitely resonates energetically, that I think that no matter where we go or what we do, how we grow and change, I know that anytime you come calling and say, hey, you want to be on the yes, the answer is always yes. Like, oh, Oliver wants to talk? Yeah, absolutely. Like, whatever he needs. And so I think that there's people in your life that will always be like that. That doesn't mean that they have to be present all the time. And like you were saying, some people, they serve a purpose for a certain period of time. What I found really interesting recently happened in my life was somebody from those days, from 4 years ago, recently cycled back into my life. And this time was more of a, I needed help, right? I've been going through a tremendous amount of pain and trauma the past, it's been a little over 18 months now. I claim that I'm out of it. Like, it's time for me to move forward and take charge of my life and do more positive things. But it's just so interesting how, yeah, people that resonate at a certain frequency, really, you never really lose touch with. And I went through that to an extreme recently, where a couple of months ago, I went back, I guess, home. I don't feel like I really have a home, but a place that I spent a lot of time growing up. And I got in touch with my cousin, who I hadn't really seen or spoken to in about 30 years. And it was so wonderful to see him and to see his life and how he's developed, and just what kind of, I grew up with, he's one of 4 brothers, and I was kind of like the 5th because I was just there all the time. And they feel like brothers to me. And I haven't said this to him, and I probably need to when I go back up there in a couple of weeks, but I believe, and he's the youngest, I believe he's the best of us. I really do. Like, he just, all the pain and torment and torture he went through growing up with 4 older boys, you know? He came out the other side like an absolute champion, and I'm so proud of him. And I'm super grateful, because when we got in touch, he remembered who my best friend was in high school. Now, this is 30 years have gone by, and I haven't seen or heard from any of these people. And one day we're just hanging out, and he drives me to his house. He didn't tell him. He didn't tell me. He was just like, I'm going to deliver these to you. And I don't know what my cousin's intention was there, but it was absolutely amazing. Like, we both were, oh my God, like, this is my old best friend. We've lived 1.5 lifetimes more than we were old when we knew each other. Yet somehow it's like we're still best friends, even though we're now completely different people than we were. So it's super interesting the way things are. Whereas there are other people that I did spend a lot of time with, and I probably never will again. We just don't align.
That's so interesting, because you automatically think that you connect with somebody because you're the same energy, same frequency, you think similar, you like similar things. And you could say that your friends at school, you had things in common, specifically regarding school days. It could be Pokemon cards, Digimon, football, or hockey. But fundamentally, you're completely 2 different people. And yet you're saying that when you came back into their lives, you felt like you were still best friends, even though you're probably completely different people now. So that essentially says that you don't have to be the same energy as them to feel a connection. So it's like, well, what is that? Is it when you break it down, your body feels like it knows the other body because you spent so much human physical time with them? Is it as your soul was growing and your body was growing and your bones and muscles were growing as kids, that you kind of entangle and merge with their DNA? So you feel like you're part of the same body, even though energetically you might be different? Or is it that they have a part of your energy that was so profound that if you take everything away, that energy is still there, versus a friend where you might have got on, the energy wasn't really there. And if you compare it to magnetic force, the force of the energy from the school days is simply stronger than the energy of somebody who was in your life that you weren't really aligned with. And so the pull is towards the friends from school versus somebody who you once worked with at an office. And it comes down to, when there was energy, how strong and deep was it? Maybe.
I think I think it's a multi-headed beast. It's its own, like Hydra. There's a lot of reasons for
Quantum
it,
physics.
Yeah, exactly.
This,
I
that, and
do
that.
I do lean a lot more towards I'm just gonna sort of simplify it and call it like a certain frequency, like resonance, that it just is. Because I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you also think along the lines of, we are all one. There is a certain energetic way that we are all the same part of one thing. And so I think obviously, like, that's a piece of it. I think that plays into it. It's just which pieces work best. In my experience, just the way that I feel, so I'm just going to speak from emotion right now, is that it doesn't matter. I'm not discounting, because it's funny, like you mentioned that my old friend Nate from high school, he keeps going on and on and on about how important I am, which I appreciate. It's nice to hear, right? It's always good to hear. And he very much attaches it to, no one else is ever going to have the opportunity to have the sort of impact that we had growing up. It's a formative period of life that it's never going to change. And strangely, like, once you kind of hit your 20s, it's like you could repeat the same kind of process, but it's just different now. Your formative years are over. Now it's almost like taking stock when you meet people. What I've noticed, though, is that bond that was created at childhood, while it is special, yes, it doesn't supersede anyone else that I might have met along the way that I really get along with. Like, there's just no, this is worth more or weighs heavier or has more value. And also, at this point in my life, having had enough experience and being able to establish boundaries for myself, not saying I'm perfect at this, it's something that I'm learning and establishing. But like, I have a great friend, and he's, for over a decade, is consistently professed like I'm his best friend and he loves me to death, and like I'm essentially the beacon of light in his life. Which is, again, it's a great thing to hear. However, I've noticed that his cycle of life is extremely toxic. He's had traumas in the past, as we all have. Mine are just a lot more recent. My extreme ones are a lot more recent. Like, I don't have them that go back as far. But his mindset essentially is, well, this happened on this day, and all these awful things happened for this 6-month period. So every single year, I'm not allowed to be happy between this day and this day. And then for the other 6 months, I'm only allowed to be okay until the next 6 months arrives, where I have to be miserable.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I'm oversimplifying, but that's really the truth. It's a crux of it, right? And so I have to say, like, look, I love this guy. He's a great dude. Deep down, I know his soul, and he's a good person. But I don't want that in my life. So it's kind of like, I have to learn I can love you from afar, and I can respect you, man, and I wish the best for you. But I can't have that in my life anymore.
Yeah. What comes to mind is that, and me and my friend were talking about this yesterday in the car, is that back in the old days, whatever shit happened to people, it happened and they got on with their life. There's no victim, there's no blaming the parents. It's just, it's fucking life. Get on with it. War, get on with it. Fucking famine, get on with it. Like, just fucking get on with your life. And nowadays, every single tiny problem is like this pivotal moment in a human's life, where every issue is now because of that abuse as a kid, or that lack of parenting, or that lack of money, or the teacher bullied you, or you got bullied at school. And it's like, in the animal world, you'd have a pack of gazelle just eating the grass. Fucking lion comes out the bush, chops off its leg, right? You ain't got time to worry about your missing limb. It's got to get on with life. Because if you don't, you're fucking just going to die there. And so we've become so soft with things that are uncomfortable, and dissonance, and abuse, and rejection, and insults, and things that don't make us feel nice. And in France, Nico tells me that if the waiter is being rude, you'll have the French person say, "You're a really rude person, aren't you?" There's no pussyfooting around stuff. If the food is cold, it's, "This is cold. Can I have a hot one, please? Thank you." In England, it's, "Oh, I'll just eat it cold. I'm not going to say anything." And the waiter will go, "How's your meal?" "Fine, thank you." Fucking twat, like, doesn't even like his job. And so we're pussyfooting around truth where we're not used to feeling truth. Yeah, we're not used to feeling truth, and then all of a sudden we are blaming people for certain things because it hurt the most, and blaming it and linking it back to that, when the reality is that, yeah, that happened and it might have made you feel a certain way, and by believing that is going to make your life a certain way, you will evolve because of that. So you've literally created a reality based on, oh, this happened, so now this is going to happen, and so you allow these things to happen, and they happen, and it's, why does this happen? Oh, because when I was younger, this happened.
It's because there's so many ways I could go with this. Like, there's a ton of examples that all just exploded in my head. To break it all down again and way oversimplify things, the answer is disgusting, actually. The answer is simply because there's money to be made. It's that simple. Like, if you think about the grand scheme of things, whether you like it or not, you live in a world of money. Okay, like, nothing exists without it. Whatever. Nobody's growing their own food. Nobody's sewing their own clothes, except, cultic sects of people. But like, for the majority, right? You have to pay for clothes. You have to pay for food. You have to pay rent for a house or a mortgage or whatever. You got to pay for a car. You got to everything. The way to do and acquire anything is money, right? So you live in that paradigm. The other end of that spectrum, or the opposite side of that coin, though, is if you're really in the know and you're trying to suppress people and take advantage of them, if you keep everybody focused, this, right? I'm not going to tell you anything new. You keep everybody focused on the negative, on the past traumas, the things that depresses them, right? And for anybody who listens to this who doesn't know this, like, food for thought, make a little note for yourself. Depression only exists in the past, and anxiety only exists in the future. Which is why it's so important to be present now, because if you are present, you cannot experience either one. But if you keep people focused on those events and keep them depressed, their vibration is low, right? And if the whole population is like that, how easy is it to take advantage of them? It's incredibly easy. And that ruins it just as a byproduct of being that way. It ruins jobs, relationships, families. Like, it just destroys them because everybody's focusing on, oh, this happened to me. Everyone should change for me. But if you think more like a lion or a gazelle, like you mentioned, like, you're like, okay, yes, that sucky thing happened. And this is the one thing I'll share from my life. I've heard it before, and I've gone through the extreme recently. When something impacts you tremendously. So I've had literally, there's been 7, 8, 9 really significant events in my life where people have wondered, how are you still here? How have you not jumped off a bridge? Like, I could never go through all of what you went through. And the only saving grace for me really was because a long time ago, I planted seeds in my head to value life, to value my own life, and to always be able to pick myself up no matter what. And remember that the universe is never going to give me more than I can handle. Even though I feel like I can't handle it, because I'm going through this means that I can. And if you have that in your mind, no matter how hard it is, and no matter how long it takes, and that's where I'm going with this, you'll get through it. The important thing to notice and to remember is that there is no timeline. So mine all started with the death of my father. And hold on. I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I'm going to start crying. There's still a lot of pain around this the more I focus on it. But that was a downslide. After my dad were 7 more deaths of really important people and family members and young people. And each one of those was traumatic enough in and of itself. But every one of them took me back to the day my dad died. and like it sort of reset my timer. One thing, actually, I think it was Nico that sent me this. So if you ever hear this, thank you so much, Nico. I think he caught wind of what I was going through somehow, and he sent me like an Instagram clip or something, and he was like, "Bro, I saw this and I thought of you." And it was really short. Essentially, someone on the street was just asking random questions, and the question was, "What's the best advice anyone ever gave you?" And the guy went from smiling to like dead serious, and he said, "When my father died," and I was like, "Whoa," because I just went through that, right? When my father died, a therapist told me it's okay to go crazy as long as you come back.
Yeah.
And I had that with me the whole time. Like I said, it took me about 18 months, me personally, to 18 months to really process it out and not be done with it. I'm not telling you that I'm finished with it. What I'm saying is it took me that long to get back to, I can function normally again. But that's just my experience. There's not a timeline. So there were people in my life that set an expectation that 6 months later, I should be fine. I should be over it and get on. Kind of like your example, like, it happens, move on with your life. Don't be afraid and give yourself grace enough to process how you need to process. Just don't lose sight of the fact that if you choose to go crazy, that you do need to come back, right? Whatever it is that you need to go through, it's okay. We're humans. We're having a human experience. And then like this, at the end of it, what we started talking about, at the end of this process for me as I was coming out of it, is when these people started coming back into my life. Imagine if you can. I mean, I don't know how old you are exactly.
32.
Okay, so almost your entire life has gone by. And I haven't seen or heard from these people. And then they come back into my life and they're like, there's love and acceptance and they're cherishing me just for who I am. They don't care about the circumstances. They don't care about the traumatic things that have happened to me, the events that have happened. Like after all of that, my relationship ended. I'm sure as a result of the trauma and who I was being during that, I'm sure that was a thing. I lost $100,000, like blow after blow after blow, which is why I say people would ask me like, how are you even standing right now? Like, how have you not jumped off a bridge? I can't imagine losing all that stuff. Like, there's no way I could go on. And I just think to myself, but why? Like, yes, this really sucks and life is hard, but I know I'm gonna build it back. Like, I know how. It'll take a little time, but I got plenty of that.
Yeah, so there's a thing called Saturn returns, and essentially when I was 30, Saturn returned, and it didn't return. Last time it returned was when I was born 30 years ago.
Wow.
So my whole life, nothing ever went right. Didn't have friends, didn't have money, didn't have a girlfriend. Everything constantly went wrong. There was always a problem. Someone stitched me up, someone lied to me, someone said that they'll be at the pub and I turn up all excited. They're not there. I get invited to a party, then they uninvite me. I get presents for somebody's birthday, then they don't invite me to the birthday. Everything, one after the other, went wrong. And I remember before I was going down the cycle of why does nothing ever go wrong and literally wanting to die, as I was coming outside of that and I learned the law of attraction and the secret, and I understood that God is testing you to see if you can handle what you'll be given if you pass the test. So, for example, I want money, I want freedom, I want love, I want to have the best, exciting, amazing life ever. God's like, hey, well, in order to really appreciate that, I'm going to have to put you through hell. Because if you can't deal with the hell, you won't be able to deal with all the success and the fame and the money, because you become so out of sync with society that you become an egotistic twat. You start becoming a god, right? And no one likes a god up his own ass, whatever. So it was like, I'm going to give you something, take it away. Give you something, take it away. Give you something, take it away. And it was like, right, I'm now aware of how life works. You're testing me. So every time a situation happened, it was, how are you going to deal with this? You're going to be a victim. You're going to blame them. Are you going to punch them in the face? Are you going to moan? Are you going to get depressed? Are you going to sit in anxiety? Are you going to sit in your bed crying, eating pizzas? Or are you going to do the right thing to get out of it? And every time something came, I did the right thing to get out of it, hoping that this would be the end. And there was something else. Then there was something else. And I like find somebody online, like, oh, this could be the one. Ends up being a scammer. Ends up being a fake profile. I'm like, fuck's sake, why did this happen again? Right? And it's like, you're testing me every single time. Now it's, okay, I need to video call you immediately. So God's given me all these lessons to eventually say, right, we now think that you are now able to appreciate the life of success, money, and fame, which you wanted so bad for the wrong reasons. And you've dealt with all the reality situations in life, which is death, lack of money, lack of friends, lack of honesty, people lying, all the bullshit that life has to offer. And then you're going to be presented with it. And so I get that every time something comes up for you, you see as, right, God has given me this as a way of strengthening me. He's not going to give me something that I can't cope with, which is going to be the end. It's how I cope. And every time you go through something, you kind of add it to your portfolio of life's lessons, of making you more whole. And then the more you go through these situations, the more you deep down expect something else to happen, because it probably will, but you are now more equipped to deal with whatever that is. Another death, losing money, losing your house, losing relationships. Like, well, I've done all this before. And then eventually I call that enlightenment, where you can handle what life is, which is everything life has to offer.
Yeah, I think there are things that I learned young and didn't really understand. And like, I'll share one of them, and I share a lot of people like, oh yeah, I know that. And at some point later on in their life, they're really going to get what it actually means. And it's just the simply like, you can't take anything with you, right? When you're born, you have nothing, and
Yes,
it doesn't matter. Like when you die, there's nothing. Like all the stuff doesn't matter, right? You can't take it with you. And it recently just really hit with me, and I have gone through a transformational and transitional phase that I still feel like I'm going through. I feel like my life has been on pause in such a way where like here's a book of my life, right? And I'm about that much of the way through, right? And it's like, I'm clearly finished this chapter, so it's time to turn the page. And I feel right here, I feel like I can't, no matter how hard I push, I can't get this page over. I can see that I've finished the chapter and I'm ready for a new one, and I can't wait to start reading it, but I can't get this page to fall. And that's where I feel like I am in my life right now. But I have had all the same, I think those are very stereotypical dreams that are other people's dreams that we get programmed with. And I think they become valid. Like, I want a lot of money. Everybody wants a lot of money, right? You ask anybody, hey, you want $1 million? No one's going to say no. Like, they all want it. But is that a burning desire of your heart? Is the real question. Whenever, with anything, like, I want a house. Do you really want a house, or are you programmed to want a house because somebody else wanted that house, right? And with the picket fence and a dog and a cat and a whatever and 2.5 kids and all that jazz. But I've come around to understanding, like, yes, if I had achieved the level of success that I wanted, and this is me judging myself, if I look back at the person that I just was, even though I really liked that guy and he was a positive person and he influenced a lot of people and had a huge positive influence in a lot of folks' lives, he would have been a fucking twat. If I had all the crazy money that I wanted, oh yeah, I wouldn't say I'd gone off the deep end, but I don't believe I was ready. Am I aware enough to say that I'm ready now? I don't know that I'll ever be qualified to answer that. But I do know this: I have a completely different appreciation for life and money and relationships, food, like so many things. I think of completely differently. I observe things differently. I appreciate things differently. And now one of the things, well, focus in my life is I want to be out of touch with society. I want to get the fuck out of this country so bad. Yesterday I decided, this is a much longer, probably completely different podcast to talk about it, because it would probably be summarized as dream interpretation. But I had a series of events come to my attention, a consideration that all sort of centered around this revelation I had of, up until a few days ago, I could never imagine selling my dad's property, because it's the only thing that I have that connects me to my dad. And what most people don't know, and I can't even really summarize, is like, he really wasn't part of my life. I spent a bulk of the time we've ever spent together, I spent in the last like month and a half of his life. There were only 2 time periods, and they were just 2 individual summers as a child that I spent with him. Those are the longest periods of time I ever spent with my dad. And I was very confused at how it impacted me. Like, I can't explain the abyss of despair and the hole in the chest and in life. Like, and I can share with you now that I feel clearly very sane. I spent, I would say, a solid 8 months with one prevailing thought every day, every moment of every day. What's the fucking point? What is the point of all of this? Will people even notice or care if I stop existing? It doesn't matter. There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing ever changes. It's the same shit with a different wrapping. Humanity goes through the same, they don't learn from history, even though we go through phases where suddenly historians become a thing and they start pointing out, hey, look at these things in history and we should pay attention so we don't repeat our mistakes. And then people come in with different focuses, and it's usually progress, in the name of progress, which is usually in the name of profit, right? And then we forget the lessons of history, and then we repeat them, and I'm just like, what? Seriously, what's the point? And I came around, for me, my personal answer was, what I really want. I've never known what I really wanted my whole life. What I really want is very simple. I just want peace. I don't want to experience stress anymore. I want money, not because I want to be a loud asshole and drive Lamborghinis and fly in jets and go all over. Look at me. I'm so great. Look how rich I am. I don't want to be that guy. Yes, I'm chasing millions, and I know I'm going to achieve it because I know how. And I've finally started rowing that boat. I'm heading in that direction. I don't know how long that's going to take, but it won't be that too terribly long. But my intention now is, I just want to fuck off to Bali and live there the rest of my life, if they'll let me, because I'm not an Indonesian citizen. But I love it there. It resonates with me. Obviously, the diving is going to be amazing. Everything about it, the people, the culture, everything, it just resonates with me. It makes me feel like I was born in the wrong place, that's the place that I should be. So the revelation that I had was, up until a couple of days ago, like I said, I could never imagine letting go of my dad's property. There was such a sentimental value and tie that I felt like I could not let go of. And then I woke up one morning and I thought about my plans moving forward, and the day where I would have to go back there for essentially one day to take care of some things. And I thought, oh my God, I can't imagine ever setting foot there again. The pain would be so overwhelming. There was so much trauma that happened there. Like, I just can't imagine staying. And then that brought me to, again, things that we think we know or may have been exposed to, think we learn, think we understand. Detachment. I've learned and I've listened to lessons to an extreme amount on the importance of being detached. And I've bullshitted myself about a lot of things, particularly with relationships. Because when I choose to enter into a relationship with someone I feel like I can trust, I'm committed. No matter what ridiculous shit goes on, I'm committed to trying to figure out how to fix it. So it's that much more painful. Like when I walk away, it's because I know I did everything I could and this is not right. When they walk away, I suddenly feel broken and rejected and cheated somehow. And that's me. That's on me. That's not the way the situation was. It's like you were talking about earlier. Like people come into your lives for certain reasons. They don't necessarily have to stay. Same goes with relationships, right? The relationship is likely there. If that's not the one for you, if that's not your forever relationship, then it has a purpose. Its purpose is to teach you and to bring you to the space where you're actually ready for the thing that you want or that you think you want. Because if it's a you think you want, that's a whole new lesson that's coming, right? So now I've shifted my I remember when we were scheduling, and I was so looking forward to our prior meeting, and you were like, hey, I'm traveling, that day's not going to work, can we reschedule? And I was like, yes, but I've got this book I want to read. And it, like, in and amongst all the things that I've been going through, I'm going to way oversimplify it because I know we don't have a ton of time to get into it, but shifting your wants, that mentally, right? Your wants and things that you perceive as needs that aren't really, into preferences. And it has had such an impact on my life and my mental state, my positivity, like my ability to feel happier more often than not. And it's like I've been trying to think of examples. And so I think about like, well, because some people are like, what does that mean? Like, explain that to me. Well, I think if you can imagine this, think about you're starving, like you have not eaten in, let's say, a week and a half. The prevailing thought in your mind is only, I gotta eat. Like that's it. I want food. I need food. That's it. That's your sole focus, right? And then I come to you and I say, hey, bud, in 5 minutes, I'm gonna feed you. The only thing I need you to decide is tell me, do you want the chicken or the steak? So if I ask you that question, what would your answer be? Chicken or steak?
Steak.
All right, you want the steak. Okay, 5 minutes later, I come out and I give you chicken. Are you not going to eat?
Of course I'll eat.
Are you not going to enjoy the chicken?
Yes, well, I've got. I haven't eaten for a week and a half.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I mean by, if you shift your wants to preferences, you suddenly allow yourself to still enjoy and appreciate what is it that you have. So I could very easily hate where I live. I live in a really big, beautiful house. I love this. I mean, in general, I love the house. I designed it on purpose. I built it to my specifications as the kind of place I want to live in. I could focus on, it's haunting living here, right? My girlfriend moved out. I'm single now. I live in an empty home. It's easy to focus on being alone and being fucking depressed. Everywhere I look where it's empty is like where she used to be. Like, it's very easy to focus on that. The moment that I shifted to like, well, my preference is to sell the house, but that doesn't mean that I can't still enjoy the things like that I built on purpose, as simple as they may be. In the neighborhood, like, I've changed my life where I've committed to, one of the things I've committed to is 15,000 steps a day. And I live in this state on purpose because it doesn't get cold here. So every single day I can go for a walk. And now I'm just appreciating, like, do I want to be here? No, but it's not cold. The birds are singing. The sun is shining. Like, there's so much. It's like, it's okay for me to be happy, even though I'm efforting changing my life. I want to get out of this space, but it's okay for me to be happy here while I'm waiting and efforting that change. Does that make sense?
100%. So the profound thing from all that is that life is going to give you a balance of shitty negative things and happy positive things, and they're all going to be in one basket, all mixed up, like a raffle ticket. You put your hand in, you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you might get your number, sometimes you might not. And whatever we focus on becomes our default feeling. And the more you focus on something, the more that becomes your default feeling. It's like the more you smoke, the more you want to smoke more cigarettes. The more you eat shitty food with MSG and calories and chemicals, the more you're going to want it. the more you go on Instagram and look at your phone, the more you're going to go on Instagram and look at your phone. The more you masturbate before bed, the more you think about watching porn and having a wank. So what does that mean? You, for example, would think about, oh, that's where my ex used to be, and all the negative emotions being brought up about how lonely you are now. Or you can look at the doorknob and think, I chose those doorknobs because I wanted to open the door so it didn't wake anybody up. Or I got perfect carpet so it didn't rub against the door frame. I chose to go live here because I go for a walk all year round. So you've got all those negative emotions that are still present and still real, and you can still focus on them, but rather than giving your brain and the energy focusing on the negatives, you've switched it to the positives, and now you have positive feedback affirmation from the doorknobs and the carpet and the fact that it's warm and you can go for a walk. But it's like, but all that negative stuff is also still there. So what does that mean? It means that life is made up of positive and negative things all the time until the day we die. Death, famine, rape, governments being a twat, somebody being noisy down the street. It's a mixture of everything perfectly at the same time. And we can choose what we focus on, the positives or the negatives. And like you and most people that go through this journey, when you don't want to feel shitty because you are aware of your emotions, naturally you focus on all the things that people did wrong to you and all the bad stuff, because essentially that's what you're feeling more of, right? You're aware that the light's over there, but now you're in dark. So you focus on all the darkness and the reason why it's dark and that person didn't change the light bulb and put a new carpet on there, and that's why it's dark. And it's like, over there is light equal to all the darkness here. And all you got to do is focus on all the positive and great things in life. And then your brain is now occupied with those things and the emotional feedback you get from thinking about those things, to the point where those negative things are just simply no longer existing. What we focus our energy on, we become more of. And then when you master that, this is why it's so important to never speak ill of anybody, because you will become that energy of illness. And part of the awakening process for me is being aware of all of the negative things I didn't want in my life and going from victim and poor me. Why did I have no friends? Why did I not have a girlfriend? Why have I got acne? Why does my armpits stink? Like, why do I got greasy hair? Why can't I ever get a girlfriend? Why am I always picked last in the football team? Why am I bullied? Why have I never been invited to a party? Oh, poor me. Fucking hell. And then I look to the left and it's my family love me so much that whenever I go out, they say, text me if you're there, okay? Would you rather I care or don't care? Okay, I get it. You have dinner every day. Homemade fresh meals, not shitty microwave meals. Fantastic. Whenever I need somebody, they're there. When I need a lift, parents pick me up. And all of a sudden, that negative part of my life is still there. And all these shitty things that people did to me is still there. But because I focus my energy on all the positive stuff, that is no longer now taking over my energetic vibration, which is why it's so powerful, quantum physics. We can literally change how we're feeling and thinking by being aware of what we're now thinking about. And just by being aware of what you're thinking about, you choose to no longer think about it. And now the opposite to that thought exists. So essentially, we have to check ourselves every time we catch ourselves in a loop of negative thoughts, toxic behavior. And hopefully, after checking yourself enough, you will simply not bother going into that state. For example, I've got these things that I put my phone in every night. It locks it. So at 7 o'clock, I put my phone in, I lock it for 7 hours, and I can't go on that damn phone and start swiping and looking at crypto and fucking go on Instagram. So now my brain doesn't even bother thinking about having a wank because my phone's in the case. It doesn't think about looking at crypto, phone's in the case. It doesn't think about going on Instagram, phone's in the case. So now my brain isn't even thinking about any of those things because I've created a pattern where it knows it's not going to get it. Which links to that reprogramming your brain by what you focus on. I'm not focusing on my phone because I can't use it. So all the energy and emotions towards those things on my phone, like dopamine from Instagram and wanting a girlfriend because I'm watching porn and having a wank, doesn't exist. Because it comes from those thoughts. And if those thoughts don't exist, I'm not feeling anything relating to those thoughts. So shifting your mindset when you catch yourself going down a negative spiral is a secret weapon.
Absolutely. I mean, it's huge, and it's not something like you can just learn, like someone can tell you that matter of factly, or just say this is what you need to do, and then suddenly, okay, that's just how I am. Like, for anybody listening to that and grabbing onto that nugget of saying like that's how I want to be, that's great. Focus on that. Focus on that's how I want to be. Like, it is a journey. I mean, I lost in my deepest pit of despair. Like, I did willingly, like I chose things that I knew better than. I know better than to drink. I know better than to eat shitty food. I've been fat, really fat, disgustingly. I've been to the emergency room 5 times for health conditions because I was fat. And then I changed my life. And then I went through this recent period of time where I was so depressed. I put on like 30 pounds. And for me, like that was really big. And I'm like, oh my God, I even had post-surgery, like after I lost all the weight, and now I'm torturing myself. And that was my first indicator for awareness to start coming back, was recognizing like I'm torturing myself on purpose. And it's not a conscious thing. There's some level of subconscious program that is torturing me, making me ask like, you know, was I a good son? Did I do the right thing? Did I do enough? You know, and that somehow triggered this deep, I'm going to speculate, trauma that created these responses. And so for an entire summer, man, I drank. I was drunk every day because I couldn't handle the pain. And that was what was in my head. It was like, I know better than to do this myself. I know this is not good. And but I also knew this is not my new life. Even though this is a horrible decision that I'm making, I knew it was temporary. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but I knew it was temporary. And I will say right now that this version of me disagrees with the decision that I made. However, I'm waffling as to whether I want to use these words, and I'm glad I chose it, because that was apparently an experience that I needed. I don't take this the wrong way. This is not an experience that everyone needs to go through, okay? Everyone has their own journey and their own path. I drank enough liquor to float a boat. And after I stopped, I was able to take stock in my experience and go, okay, like that's something that I'm now aware I will never do again. Not to say I'm never going to drink ever again. I might have a beer or something, you know, if friends or whatever, but it's rare now. It's super rare. I don't go, oh, I just feel like drinking like that. That will never be a part of my life as a whole. But my experience now creates a relatability, whether it's to other people, if they're interested and I'm sharing my story and they've gone through that, it's going to resonate with them. And then whatever it is I have to say is probably going to help them out of or through whatever they're going through, right? And on the flip side of that, it makes other people now relatable to me, because I can say, wow, I do know what that was like, what you were going through. I've had that specific experience. I still think, though, to this day, like, you know, with weight being a problem in my past, I don't think anyone's ever going to convince me that food is not the biggest problem you could possibly have, because like drugs, you can quit. Alcohol, you can quit. Food, you cannot quit or you will die. So like when you have a problem with food, it doesn't go away. Even though I'm very conditioned, my experiences have conditioned my mind, my willpower to make the right decisions and then focus on how I feel. I'm so glad I can walk. I'm so glad that I can go to the gym. I'm so glad that I'm dropping weight and I've got more energy. I'm waking up naturally. I've got so much more mental clarity. My acuity is like, I feel like I'm back and then some. It's so amazing, like food and just being physically active, what kind of impact that has on you mentally. It is absolutely amazing. So when I focus on those results, it's so much easier to make all my decisions and allow them to become patternistic and natural, which is exactly what happens for people who have problems or claim they have problems, right? Oh, I don't understand why I can't lose weight, because you're eating shit. Like in your mind, you're not, and you're the only one who's going to have to convince yourself of the truth. Like you're eating shit. It's not magic. There's no special. You're not special in any way. You don't have some unique condition. No, you just eat shit and get fat. Like I can't stop drinking. Well, you can actually. Like there's millions, there's legions of people who have stopped drinking. There's legions of people who've stopped taking drugs. As are legions of people like my father who died of cirrhosis from drinking, or who have died from drug overdoses, right? It's the same thing. Like I'm sure you've heard plenty of stories about, like, say, twins, for example, right? One becomes a rock star and the other one is a complete fuck up. Well, they literally had the exact same life growing up, right? I mean, we say that as a joke because they're twins, but like, I mean, your siblings, you're exact same age, you're having all the same experiences, you're the same parents. You know what I mean? Like, so what was so different about what made one choose one path and one choose the other path? Which is another thing that I think people are really missing. Back to your point of focusing on why does this happen to me and blah, blah, blah. Like it's a whole out of my control thing. No. Everything is in your control. You choosing to drink. Like I chose it. It's hard for me to say, man. That's a tough pill to swallow. That's like, it's admitting, oh, I'm a failure. I made a bad choice. I'm a bad example. Like there's all those thoughts go through my head, even though they're not true. I'm human like the next person. And then it starts to develop fear of judgment and, oh, I got to hide this from people. I don't want people to know that I did all this stuff. No, I don't care. I'm happy to share because I think it will help someone. I'm okay with saying the decisions that I made going through the trauma that I went through ultimately led to the demise of my relationship. So what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on, well, I should have done this different because my relationship wouldn't have been over? Or I went through those things for a purpose because I had to learn something. And also it was time for that relationship to end. And this was simply the catalyst because the season's over, right? Trust me, that was tough. For a while, I spent time laying in my bed most of the day, won't get up, crying my eyes out, snot slinging, drooling. Like it was the super ugly cry, right? It was so painful. But it's just part of the process, right? It's human condition. So even through some of that, with some of the things that I've learned and be able to keep into my head, even going through that pain, I would, my first thought is always, I don't want to feel this way, right? This sucks. I hate this. It's so painful. My heart hurts. My chest hurts. I'm so sad. I'm crying. Like, I don't want this experience. But somewhere banging around there is pops in that thought of like, this is not just okay. This is actually great. This is energy that needs to be released. It needs to get out. And guess what? When you're done and you feel like it's all out, that's just this wave. Because it'll come back, maybe not as intense, and you don't know when it's going to hit you. I've literally started, I was walking the neighborhood one day. I go for 2 1-hour walks on average every day. I was halfway across the neighborhood, hit me. Couldn't stop it. I just started crying. And of course, my mind, like everybody else, one of the first things I think of, judgment. Oh my God, what are people going to think? Who is this fucking sissy walking around here crying? You know? But it's like, no, you know what? I reject that thought. I know that's not reality. Like I'm going through legitimate pain and I'm not embarrassed, from it. And I know no one's going to approach me because I've just decided I don't want anyone to approach me. I don't want attention because of this. I just want to process this.
Right, we need to take it to another episode because it will go on and it's an amazing conversation. So let's end it here. Anything you want to promote or plug before we finish?
I generally don't have anything specifically. I will just simply share to the whatever the percentage of relevance that it might be, that it is my full intent. I am fully aligned with leaving the States. My goal is Bali. I'm open to any destination, and the requirement is that I have to sell both my homes. So they're beautiful estates. I've got a really beautiful home in Florida, if anybody's looking to go to Florida. And I have 12.5 acres in the woods, which is amazing, up in Virginia. And as soon as those go, I'm out. And we'll be talking on closer time zones.
And if you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
What I would tell the rest of the world, I would, if I had one day, I would just tell them, live now, because you may not have it tomorrow. Whatever the thing is that you want to do in your life, do it now. I'm only semi-living that right now, and I'll tell you what I mean very quickly is I've been dreaming about a liveaboard dive trip for 13 years. Next year, I know anybody seeing this won't believe it, I'm sure, and I appreciate those thoughts. Next year, I'll be 50. And there's no fucking way I'm not doing that on my 50th birthday. Like, that's just, now, my advice is do it now. Do it today, because I might not see 50.
Yes.
This is just a decision that I've made. When I was 30, I flew a plane. When I was 40, I went on a week-long cruise to a bunch of different Caribbean dive destinations. So I've just sort of decided that on the 10s, I'm going to do something that I consider fucking amazing. And that was my commitment to myself, is this I've been dreaming about for too long. I'm not waiting anymore. This is going to be my amazing. Hopefully it'll be from Bali.
It will be from Bali, and you're going to fucking smash it. And let's end that there, and we'll continue this conversation on another episode.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ali, man. It's always good to see you.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.